Hey YouTube, in the shop tonight working on this mint 1980 Ford Futura. It's my first Ford and I inherited by the legendary drag and drive man himself, Tom Franks. This hot rod is really cool. It's got a stock bottom end 5.0 with a set of TFS heads, stage 1 camshaft. It's got a Novi 1000 supercharger, which makes it really cool. 3.5-inch pulley pushing about 7 pounds of boost or so. This car has always been kind of a locally famous car. It's known for doing Rocky Mountain Race Week, half-mile racing when Tom owned it, and it's just all around known for being a really cool sleeper car. Blower car that's aggressive on the street, and it's just kind of like it's got a little secret to it. It's like a grandma car a little bit, right? So why are we doing a video on this car? This is a car that currently doesn't run. It hasn't for about 4 years. Tom decided to park it, said it was running rough, didn't know exactly what the problem was. He didn't want it sitting for any longer, so he ended up giving it to me kind of as an inheritance. I bought it, but it was for little money because it's a non-running car with unknown condition, essentially. We're gonna take that opportunity to make it our new test mule here at Scram Speed. We're gonna do R&D on it, do a handful of tests. So we have a couple products in mind for it already, and use it for tech stuff like this video you're watching right now. It has an Anderson Motorsports PMS right now, which is kind of dated. Even 10 years ago it was kind of dated. They stopped supporting it about 10 years ago. It's 90s technology and we're just kind of past using that. So it's a piggyback, and that's what they commonly use on these style of cars, and we have a better solution for that. So the solution we use here at Scram Speed is Holley TFI. We have a retrofit system that we use on these cars specifically for the 79 to 95 5.0 Mustangs and other swap cars with 5.0s in them. The stock ECU is mass airflow controlled, and it's the old school way of doing it. You had to tweak it a little bit to get the mass to use for supercharger applications, more airflow, larger injectors. With this Holley TFI system, we have full control using speed density tuning, which is map-based tuning, wide open throttle, closed loop fueling. It's a killer system that we use in these cars all of the time. Many of our customers are very happy with this system. This system that I have right here is a hand-picked system. It's not like anything you're gonna find online anywhere else, and we designed it specifically for 5.0 Fox Body platforms with manual transmissions. Before rolling into this installation, we're going to go over a couple basic ground rules on installing Holley TFI on any car that we do in the shop here. Number one, the car needs to be fully prepped before the Holley TFI installation. We need to verify the compression, fuel pressure, oil pressure, spark, anything possible to make sure that the car is running as good as we can and overall ready for the Holley install. Nothing is worse than a customer saying, they want to swap over their system because they want to upgrade their ECU, or they want to go from a carburetor to Holley, whatever the case is, and then we find out it's a distributor or bad valves that are making it bad the whole time, and then we install a bunch of EFI on it, make it better in every way, only to have it still run the same because there was no actual problem to do with the EFI. So that's what we're trying to avoid there with that one. Number two, always remove the easy stuff on the car to make it better to work on, simpler to work on, quicker to work on. Things on this car specifically like the 5.0 intake that's in the way. Take it off there. It's much easier to do it. You can put it back on for figuring stuff out, but have it removed. Don't just try to leave it on there. Passenger seat of any car. If you're installing the ECU inside, make sure you take the passenger seat out of the car. It makes it much easier to get to things. You're not trying to bend over underneath the dash upside down. You can just lay on the floorboard and look up. It's very simple. Number three, not a single wire is ran on the car until all of the sensors are placed, components are mounted like the ECU, and everything for the installation sheet is filled out. We have installation sheets in these cars. We take a lot of time. We tediously go through them and make sure that nearly everything can be prevented or predicted is as easy as possible. Wiring is the last thing you should do. It is the very last thing you should do on any installation. Make sure that everything is done mounted before you do any wiring of any sort at all. I know you're anticipating to do the wiring first or lay the harness out. Wait till everything's installed in the car. Figure out how many ignition sources you need. Figure out all of the grounds that you need and their locations are going to be ran. Here at Scram Speed, we use pre-made binders that we have a lot of information in, and we keep track of all the wiring, even handmade notes by the technicians. You're going to have them when installing them. Handwrite your notes out, things to remember during the installation that you want to make sure you have for future reference. Believe it or not, a notebook and a multicolored pen goes very far for a DIYer. Make sure that you have some sort of resource to record all of the information that you're doing during this installation. It's very crucial. And then lastly, you want to make sure that everything that can be done to the car to ensure a successful installation is done. For instance, we put a brand new fuel system on this car already, verified fuel pressure. It's going to retain the stock style regulator. So we verified we had fuel pressure. We verified that the engine cranked smoothly. We found good ignition sources, and we made sure that everything on the car was as close to being done as could be minus the EFI install. It's just very crucial to have all of those steps taken care of before installing. Your car may have all of those already done. This one had nearly none of them done because it had been sitting for a long time. So don't throw EFI on the car and expect it to fire up immediately when you have a bad fuel system or something of that nature.
So first up is sensor installation. I like to do sensors first. First thing I'm doing is a coolant temp sensor. It's really nice that the one that's included with the Holley kit is the exact one you need to go in the coolant rail here in the 5 liter. Just get that thing out, slip it right in, give it a good snug down, make sure the orientation's right, and done deal. Next up is going to be the fuel pressure installation. Tom had a remote mount sensor that we went ahead and did. I went ahead and vacuumed it out real quick, get the new sensor in. It's a SNS125 available on Scram Speed's website. Next up is the oil pressure sensor. Tom already had some stuff going on over here with this extension. It's pretty common we see something similar to these. It was really nasty, so I had to make sure I got it very clean before installing the new one. Take all this stuff off there, the old sensor, the old feed for the supercharger, and we're going to install a new unit. It's made by Scott Drake, available on our website. Quarter MPT, already has thread sealer on it. I got the thing all prepped and ready. We're going to slide it in there. It's got dual port on it, which is really nice for if you need to feed a turbo or a supercharger. In our case, we just want to literally get oil pressure, and then we want to feed the supercharger. Give it a final clocking. That way it gets in about the right position. Hook up the supercharger feed line. Make sure it's good and snug down. And you got oil pressure in your feed going to something that's not made out of copper and pipe. This is the charge pipe for the Futura. I took the bypass valve location and welded in a bun for the intake air temperature sensor. Made that one pretty simple. Wideband O2 sensor goes in the collector on the passenger side on this car next to the transmission. That wraps up all the sensors. Now we're on to the ECU installation. I made a trick little bracket for it. It's pretty nice. I usually like to hang it by more than one bolt location, but back here there was really limited options. Luckily I found a pre-existing dash bolt right there. It slips on and fits really, really nice. Single bolt, but it held good. I didn't have any problems with it shaking or moving around, so I really like that spot. Put it out of the way, and it's still accessible when pulling the glove box out. This is what it looks like when it's finally installed. Super simple, super clean, doesn't inhibit anything that's back there, and that's how I like doing it. Normally you can put them on the passenger side kick panel. On the Futuras you can't, there's no room. The glove box door is still able to go on. Power wires for the ECU is next. I just went ahead and plugged in the power harness from Holley, ran it to the side of the car and down, trying to get an overall length of it. We normally just run them inside the kick panel and on the side of the car here. The battery in the back of the car makes it so that we have to run these things reverse style. If it was in the engine bay, we'd be running it up the front, but this one comes out the back through the back seat, comes up to the battery relocation, which is on the passenger side in the trunk area. Here is the power and ground. These only go to one location, period. They go to the ground side of the battery and the power side of the battery. It's the only two spots you're allowed to put it. Snug them down directly to it. I like these terminals because you don't have anything else attached to them. They're going directly to the power and ground side of the battery. Back up to the front of the car, we got the fan for the Futura. This is something Tom grabbed out of the junkyard. It actually does a really good job though, so I'm going to retain it. It had a bad connection on it and some medium okay wiring. We're going to use instead this Scram Speed dual fan relay kit that we sell. USA made, pre-wired everything system where it's an all-in-one power and ground hookups. Connect the ground and you're good to the Holley kind of situation. It's going to mount right about in this location here. I'll show you how to do that now. We went ahead and mocked it up, found a nice little spot for it, made sure that it was level. After I found out where it was, we went ahead and pre-drilled the hole, added rivet nuts because that's what we use here at Scram Speed, not self-tappers. We are real big fans of doing rivet nuts. Other hole, other rivet nut, make sure it's all good. I believe these were 1032s. Snug the bracket down that you can disconnect from the main module. Click her in and then install it. It's just a power, a ground, and then the connections. It's really fast and simple. Easy way to do it. And these can be found on Scram Speed's website. Time to play with the main harness. This is the harness that we specifically use for this build. It is the J1A, J1B connectors, is standard with every LS harness. Right here you have your main power relay, which is essentially your fuel pump relay and fuel pump fuse right there. It also powers the injectors. This guy right here is what you would read the screen with, or the digital dash. It needs to be inside the cab, preferably. The white and red wire is 12 volt ignition. That also needs to be in the engine bay, so that needs to go in the engine bay. That needs to stay inside. This is your power tap. It is a green wire, which is 12 volts. There is an orange wire, which is your 5 volt reference, and then you got your low reference or sensor ground, and then just a standard chassis ground. This guy right here is your input-output harness, also preferably in the engine bay. So you want to go through the firewall, you know, with that stuff in the engine bay, and then this stuff right there inside of it. So somewhere in that area is where we want to go through the engine bay at. Right there is nearly where we put all of these Mustang Futura harnesses through, and it has this grommet right here. This grommet is perfect for this spot. You can trim it out as much as you need to, but we just remove it for the mock-up stage, and that's what I'm doing now. Luckily, I had my daughter help me today, because it is a real bear to get that harness behind that box. So she was pulling as I was pushing it through and just trying to feed it in there and get it in there, so that way I can see where the ECU is mounted at and kind of get an idea of about where the harness needs to be at. Any slack that you have, you obviously want to have inside the car as opposed to inside the engine bay. So I was kind of putting it in there and getting it about where it needed to go at. And once I had the spot where it kind of needed to go at, I went ahead and fed the rest of the harness over the engine side to make sure that we were in the ballpark, and I was really close right there. Then I added a zip tie just to kind of keep it about in the same spot that I needed it to go. I wanted to make sure it didn't move as I was mocking up everything. Snug it down, then I added one more zip tie over here on this harness side just to make sure that's about where I wanted it to come through the firewall at. I had ample room for the O2 sensor. It reached fine. And then also, I mean, knock sensors are right there. Not that those matter very much. We're not using them. But the ignition harness and the fuel injector harness is all right there behind the engine, which is a perfect location. It's pretty rare that we have all of the locations of the sensors in the correct spots and the correct lengths. We like to shorten and extend them if need be. We knew that in this one we had to, so I added that green piece of tape. The oil pressure sensor is down there, so we know we have to extend that one. We know we have to extend the fuel pressure to the other side. We can see where that one's at. The method that I like to use is just using a spare piece of hose or something, coming around, get the about length, and I take that hose measurement with my thumb and I go to the table and I just mark it with a piece of tape saying, hey, 37 inches long is the oil pressure length, and that way I know. And I just write these all down on a piece of paper, make sure that they're about right. It works really nice. I do that for all of them. This is the intake air temperature sensor, but I'm going off that green piece of tape. That's where my split's going to be at. So I'm just taking all the measurements with the hose, making sure everything's logged down, and I just have a piece of paper with all of the lengths written on it for the fuel pressure, oil pressure, intake air temperature sensor, anything I need to adapt or change from that green tape location. Do every one of these now, makes it really simple, and then you modify it on a table. Here's the harness, all final prepped and laid out on the table for you guys to check out. At 37 inches, that was the oil pressure extension length. I got that one done. That was the biggest one I had to change. The green fuel pump output wire, I had to put that back into the cab because it's going towards the rear of the car where the fuel pump's located. And the red and white wire, which is the ignition wire, I had to put that in the engine bay. So green wire in the cab, red and white out of the cab. So I had to put that one forward. The location that's going to the firewall, that's right there. That green tape location was right here, and that's where I kind of had everything branch out at going towards the other direction of the engine. Everything now is done in the correct length. I relabeled the ones that needed to be relabeled, and the only real one I had to change was the TPS signal. That thing didn't match the stock Ford anyways, and I really like using DT stuff when possible. This is the cheat sheet that I made for it, so that way I knew what it was when I came to the TPS sensor, which was botched and needed changed anyways. Now we're installing the harness for its final time. We're going to lay it back out on the engine, remove that passenger side grommet, and fish it back through. I have my helper inside, helping me get it back in and make sure nothing's going to be snagged. That's really the trick here, is just to lay it back out exactly where you want it at and make sure everything's in the proper location to hook it back up. That grommet turns out perfect every time. That's why we like using it. Thank God my daughter was here, or I would have never been able to get that thing back in there. Everything is now laid out in the engine. It turned out super slick and clean, and it's ready for everything to be plugged in. Time to give our throttle body some attention. A couple things need to change on it as well. First off, the TPS sensor was really badly chewed up, so I went ahead and changed it out, got it DT prepped, so that way it matches the other side of the harness. It turned out really, really slick. We do this to all of them. On the other side of the throttle body is the worst part of the car, which is the idle air control valve on these 5.0s. We switched them all over to GM idle air control valves. They're much quicker and nicer. The harness is already prepped for them. The IAC block that we use is sold by Scram Speed. It's made by us. It is a badass idle air control valve. It flows a ton of air and it gets the job done. 5-axis CNC. Look at that beautiful thing. Really makes a difference on these cars. Let's take a break from wiring and work on the distributor for a minute. I'm going to go ahead and pull off the distributor lock, get it loosened up, and right now I'm going to go ahead and mark number 1. It is already at TDC on number 1. I'm going to go ahead and mark that. I kind of did it backwards, but generally you mark it, take it off there, and then go ahead and pull the distributor. We really like to update the distributor on these cars. It's a whole lot easier if all the system's new, and we have had bad distributors before, so it's something we really like to change out every single time we do one of these installations. So go ahead and take the old one out, and I'll lay it on the table with a side-by-side next to the new one that we were going to install. Now this is a distributor that's a little bit hard to find on Holley's site, but it's our preferred one to use. It is a Hyperspark distributor technically, but it's got a Deutsch connector on it and it's considered a ready to run. It has an S designation behind the part number. That means it has a steel gear. There's a roller camshaft in the Futura. This little notice right here says steel gear should be used with a roller camshaft. That's what I have. The non-designation means it has a cast gear, and that's what a standard camshaft has. But let's be honest, who uses a stock cam on one of these cars, right? Lube that gear up really, really well, and then we're going to go ahead and get ready to stab it back in the Futura. I had to rotate over the oil pump drive just a little bit to get it back into place. Go ahead and stab it down and try to get it right back in that same spot of TDC number 1. Had to move it just a little bit, and there it is. Bam, straight in. As you can see, number 1 is pointing towards my mark, so we're good there, and the distributor is seated all the way down, so we're good there. That was the goal at that moment. Counterclockwise cap is what you're going to use to index the distributor. You lock it down on top, and the distributor actually snaps in a little bit to it, and you get it so that way it can't really rotate around. You're pretty foolproof. Snug the lock down, and that way you know you have the distributor indexed correctly at the moment. I'm going to take a white paint pen and just kind of put a little mark at the bottom of it so that way I know where it's at. So if I need to move it back or forth while setting time, and at least have a reference point to where I started at. There's a little notch on the cap that signifies where number 1 is at on the cap. I'm going to take a marker and just mark a spot on the distributor right there on itself so that way I know where it's at. Take the cap, put it on. After I have the cap on, I'm going to verify which one is number 1, and it's this guy right there. So I'm positive I know which one number 1 is. Lock the distributor cap down, and that is pretty much the entire install for this distributor. It's a super nice unit. We use it on every single one of these that we do. We have a lot of success. Lastly, we need to install spark plug wires. This is something where if you mess this step up, nothing else will matter because it's going to run bad. Number 1, count backwards and make sure that you put the correct spark plug wires on the correct spot on the distributor cap. It's something that gets overlooked a lot, and it's a step that's very easily missed because you assume that you know what you're doing. Just double check and verify that you get this step right. Coil mounting in the engine bay of the Futura was surprisingly hard given there's 800 holes to choose from, but none of them managed to line up, so I decided to kind of put it down near the frame rail at a decent spot that at least the spark plug wire would still reach. Drilled the holes as I always do. Make sure you use rivet nuts because rivet nuts are the only thing that should be used for mounting things like coils, not self-tappers. I judge people heavily off doing so. This thing is essentially just a standard coil with a big heatsink attached to it, but it's not expensive for what it is. We use it with every one of the builds. Make sure you snug it down good. It should never go anywhere. Yes, I was only able to use 3 of the 4 holes. Spark plug wire still fits, and that was pretty much the deciding factor for where I mounted it in the Futura. Just keep it out of too much heat. Next up is the ignition box. Similar situation as the coil where there's a lot of holes and none of them really fit that well, but we had to put an ignition box on this car because that distributor is only good for 400 horsepower without the aid of an ignition box. We're definitely going to make over 400 horsepower because this is a forced induction car. Doing rivet nuts as well, making sure everything looks nice, lines up correctly. I'm going to do a video at a later date showing if you remove this and do just the Hyperspark, how far will it go before it produces an issue, but we'll do that for a later video. Went ahead and snugged down all the bolts on the ignition box, and it turned out pretty slick at this little location. I like to keep the ignition box and the coil pretty close. It always looks nicer. The last thing to mount is the ignition module. I needed a spot to put all of the ignition sources for the Holley, so I came up with this guy. This is actually my prototype for something new I'm going to start building. It's just a Scram Speed ignition module. It has a DT8 connector here that outputs all of the ignition sources and a couple other things. The ground wire here powers everything. It mounts right to the bracket itself, which makes it really convenient for For mounting and for hooking up the ground, you want to do a separate location. You pop the top of it off here and it exposes what's inside, which is 2 relays. One relay is for the ignition itself that outputs the 4 ignitions, and then there's an auxiliary here, which I'm going to use for the starter because the starter relay on this car was bad. It has all of the fuses built in here, so you can kind of output whatever you want for fuse locations. 10 amps is fine for the ignition sources, but for the starter one, I went ahead and put a 15 in it just to be sure. I'm going to mount it right about here, and it's going to give me everything that I need to run the Holley for ignition sources. Drill a hole, add a rivet nut, install this bad boy, and it's going to give me a location. I always check my rivet nuts to make sure there's continuity to ground. Nothing. Perfect. So we're good there. Go ahead and mount it all up, and then I'll have a spot when I start wiring to say, hey, it needs to go to this connector, so I know exactly how long all the lengths need to be of the wires. Put the ground and the mounting bracket down. Done deal. Installed. Now this is an option that you don't have to do, but I do always recommend, and that is a speed sensor input. I like to have the speed be known to the ECU. It does a lot of trick tuning on these cars that makes them drive a lot better than they did stock. If you have a T56 car, you already have a speed sensor input. All you need is the max version of the ECU, and you can input speed. I did not have a T56. I have a T5 like many others listening to this video, so you have to do a drive shaft speed sensor. Don't mind my bracket. This is just up for mock-up. The one that's included in the kit is much nicer, but it is a crucial part to making these cars drive better than stock. Before we dive into the wiring, let's do a quick recap on what we already have done. ECU is mounted, the battery is mounted, and all the power is going to it. We have the sensors all mounted. We have the coil and box mounted. We have the distributor stabbed. We have the main harness in, and everything under the dash looking pretty good. As you can see, the harness is in, everything's laid out. It looks pretty solid. Right here you can see I have the wires for the speed sensor. They're not plugged in yet, they're just laying out there, but I have all of the wiring to the rear of the car done right now. The power and grounds are ran under the carpet. Everything is done there. The speed sensor, you can see, goes through that little grommet right there. But all of the wiring toward the rear of the car is done right now. That is kind of the main goal. We're doing the wiring in the engine bay next, but for right now, that's all taken care of. So let's dive into it. First thing to wire is our Hyperspark 2 ignition box. We like this mini version. It fits in a lot of places on these cars. The only reason we use the standard Hyperspark box is because it matches the older MSD boxes. So if there's already one there, it mounts in the same location and looks really nice. We don't have to put new holes in the car. 2 main leads coming off, red and black. The red needs to go directly to battery or to a power lug. The black needs to go directly to the engine block or to the battery. It can also go to a chassis to engine block ground location. That's fine too. The coil wire on this thing's really long. I usually don't need it that long. I gotta obviously shorten that up a good distance. Not too hard. It's got the orange positive and the brown and orange negative. The only other 2 wires in this entire ignition box is a red and a white wire. The white wire is for points wire, it's the points input, and then the red wire is for ignition 12 volt, and that's where that ignition module on the other side of the car is going to go. So I have to route both of those all the way around. Sometimes we use this connection, sometimes we don't. It depends on where it ends up at. If I can put other connection points in a Deutsch, I will. I tried to go down, it was a little bit too close to the engine, decided to go up and around, seemed to be just a little bit cleaner. That was the decision I chose, so I'm going to take the wires and come all the way over here and see if that wire is long enough to reach my points for the harness, and it is. Right there you can see the white wire is just long enough to reach my points for the harness. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that thing back. That yellow wire that you see right there, that's rarely used on any harness, but especially not on this one because that's a coil input for like a tack signal or something. We don't ever use those. Even on the TFI cars we don't use those. I'm going to Deutsch all 3 of those on the harness as well as another wire coming off of it, and that's going to be the wire that goes back for the 12 volt all the way to that ignition module. But now I got all of those wires coming off the harness Deutsched, and I'm going to do the pass-through. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off the connection point that I was just talking about and replace it with a DTP3, so that way it connects and has the 2 wires going to it and then the single wire coming back. And then it also leaves an open pin if I ever need anything for that yellow wire in the future, which I would just repin if I needed. The coil wire needs to be shortened by a bunch, obviously, so I'm just going to take it and bend it around here and kind of get a rough measurement. It needs to be right about there. I'll cut it and terminate it. Next up, I need to put a ground location back here for a handful of things. So I'm going to go ahead and just do a chassis to ground location to the engine block. Obviously make sure it has good continuity after the rivet nuts installed. Perfect. So I knew that the ground location for the box was going to go there. I had that one kind of figured out. The power wire obviously is going to have to be extended by a good ways. I'm going to save that one for a little bit later and get a measurement, but I'm going to go ahead and loom what I have since I know where the ground is going to go. The loom that we use is the same exact split loom that Holley uses. It just matches the rest of the harness really nice, makes it easy. Made sure that the eyelet fit. Yep, it does. Looks good. Take it back out. Now I got to disconnect the actual connection point and shorten that coil wire by a good amount. There's a couple ways to do this. I didn't have the pins and I wanted to get it done today, so I went ahead and just used barrel connectors. That is our preferred method of extending wires or shortening wires. We do not solder. Barrel connectors, tight crimps, heat shrink, good loom. It works every time. We've done it thousands of times. Go ahead and reconnect the box, connect up the coil, get everything tightened up here, maybe add a zip tie or two, go ahead and route it back underneath, get everything ran, hook my ground location up, make sure that's good and snug tight. I'm going to leave this kind of loose right now because I might be adding some stuff or pulling some things over here, but just kind of getting it all halfway where it needs to go for the time being. Looks really good. I wasn't quite done on this side of the car. I still had to find a clean ignition 12-volt source that also had power while cranking for the Holley. I found a red wire with a green stripe, so I hooked up to it, went inside, keyed on, tried cranking, still had power. I knew this is the one I needed to use. Only have two things left to do on the entire driver's side of the car, and that is run the input-output harness across right now, and then the distributor wiring. I went ahead and ran the input-output harness across the back because I had a handful of inputs that I wanted to put through the driver's side grommet in that location, kind of down where that ground was just at. Clutch switch, a couple other little things. You never know what might pop up, but I wanted to just go ahead and run that right now so that way I kind of button up all the wiring on the driver's side. The distributor has a 6-pin Deutsch connector on it. Makes it really simple to connect. The only thing we really use on it is the purple mag output wire, the ground, and then the white wire gets deleted. The pink wire is 12-volt output, and then the coil wire, as you can tell, we were getting rid of that, so we don't need that anymore. Hooking up the ground right now, I got to clean the head. It's pretty dirty. Just going right to the cylinder head. That's where we always go with the ground straps. This tangled wire right here is our 12-volt. It's going to be ran over to our 12-volt ignition module, so I just need to get that all buttoned up here and then get it ran over to the passenger side of the car. Add a little zip tie, tuck it in. Everything's easy, connected. Pretty simple install on this distributor. On to the last thing, and that is ignition wires and buttoning up the passenger side engine bay. These are the blue and green wires are the fan output wires. Those have to go directly to this I/O connection right here that I'm grabbing. Those have to go to that guy right there. I'm going to go ahead and run those right through here, get a good length on them, cut them, splice them right into that connector. Pretty simple like. I'm going to tell you right now, the next minute is pretty much just watching me wire this passenger side, so bear with through me. It took me a long time to edit this and record it, and it's about 3 hours worth of work condensed into 1 minute, but it's crucial that you go over all this stuff. It's really nice to be able to see the process a little bit, and it is time consuming, it's painstaking, but the more time you spend on it, the nicer it will turn out. And I'm going to go over pretty much what it all is right now, so when I'm actually showing it to you, you're kind of already knowing what we're doing. It is the starter request wire for relay number 1. That's a blue wire that's getting ran to the ignition module. The white and blue ignition relay input wire from the driver's side, so that's what turns the ignition module on, which is from the car, white and blue ignition wire. The Holley TFI main ignition wire, which is red and white. The Hyperspark box, red ignition input. The Hyperspark directly to battery, which I have a battery lug over there in that lower location right under that box that I'm actually at right now. And then the Hyperspark distributor pink 12-volt ignition, that's going to the module. Holley fuel pump battery power, that is going directly there to that lug as well. The Holley fuel pump relay ground is going to the ignition module because it has a ground output as well. So all of those wires, all 8 of those wires I just mentioned, are being done right now and cleaned up. And it takes a long time to do that stuff. There's a diagram I will show you here momentarily. I'm just heat shrinking the last connection right now, buttoning it all up with some zip ties, making sure it's all not too tight, not too loose. Make sure it looks really, really nice. This is the final install of the last bit of wiring. It's all coming together, all of the ignition wires, all the powers, all the grounds, everything. So you want to make sure you take a little bit of time and make sure this really turns out nice. It's going to need to be serviceable as well, but this is kind of what the final product looks like before I pin it to the Deutsch. This is the wiring diagram. Helps me keep everything straight as far as what goes to that ignition module. You got your DT8 pin connector right down the middle, labeled 1 through 8, and then you have your wire color off to the right hand side, the name as far as where it goes, and then the functionality on the right hand side, and that is what the module actually does to it. You got your DT8 connector here is what it looks like. All of the pins are inserted in their proper locations. Looks really clean. And then you got the 2 battery lugs that I made with this, which is your Hyperspark box power and then your Holley fuel pump relay battery power. Those don't need to go directly to battery. They just need to go to a 12-volt source, and I have a battery lug right down there in that location. This is the female end of that connector to the relay module, and then that battery lug is right there. That's where it goes to. So anything battery power, that's where I'm getting it from. But this is what the wiring diagram looks like. It turns out really nice. These ignition modules are super trick. I use them all the time, and it makes all the ignitions and grounds really simple and gives it a place for everything to go to. I did forget one wire while doing that connector, and that was the starter wire. That's the stock one for the car. It's sitting down here. It needs to go to this DT8 connector as well. It's a blue wire, so I pinned it as the starter request wire, a blue, and it's relay 1 input. That is what's going to start the car. This is the final product. We're done wiring. I got the ignition relay module and the fan relay module right there. You got the, don't worry about that. That's just a stock alternator wire that's convoluted tubing, but everything looks nice. And the battery lug, the DT8 connector makes everything look clean down there. It's all away from the heat, which makes it look super nice. It's routed good, and this is what a nice install should look like, especially if you're adapting to an old car. You got the power tap available if you need it. You got your input output plug right there if you need it. Everything looks super nice and clean. Now we have to plug in a couple more connections, but all of that is done. The whole EFI install is pretty much taken care of, except for one more thing to plug all the remaining wires that are dangling down there to the left, and that is this intake manifold I've been kicking over for the last 2 weeks. So I'm about to bust that thing out and get it bolted on and see what it does. This is the last thing to do before we finally start this car up for the first time in years. Put the intake manifold back on, map sensor, intake air, all that kind of stuff, throttle position, get all that stuff bolted on. It's been a long video. I really appreciate you guys hanging out and your patience with me, and hopefully it helps one person through the process. But let's get all this stuff bolted on and finally see if this car fires up to life. And it's alive, just like that. Started right up on its very first try. No issues really. The only thing I noticed is I didn't have the O2 sensor plugged in on this first fire up, but it's idling a little bit high, so that was the first thing I noticed. So I went ahead and zoomed in the camera, tried to get it locked down there, and we're gonna set the initial timing. So taking the timing light out, I have it locked at 15 degrees in the Holley inside the car for a static timing check, and now I'm turning the distributor down, making sure that it matches. So 15 in the Holley, 15 on the distributor. Now she's purring like a kitten. She's alive again. Fired right up. 20 minutes later, it's ready to take for a drive. Just a proper shitbox. As soon as I put it outside, I had to do a burnout. I could not help myself. That's a start to finish installation of Holley EFI on this Futura. I know that was a lot of information to break down. I didn't go into all the specifics, but we covered pretty much everything you need to know about this exact chassis installation of Holley EFI. I will be doing follow-up videos on this thing, including a dyno video, which is where it's sitting at right now. It's gonna be really, really good. Any questions you have, just ask them below and we will get back to you on that. We're a real speed shop, and give us a call and you're gonna get a guy on the phone that knows what they're talking about. That's the benefit of Scram speed in itself. Like and subscribe to our YouTube content. We get plenty more of this. There's gonna be a million more videos of the Futura coming out here shortly. We have a ton of R&D products. So if you like 5.0 stuff, you like LS stuff, please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.